Antarian warriors of light are like cosmic samurai, enigmatic, extremely calm and self-disciplined, with emotional control, non-aggressive or hostile. They present a very self-contained energy. They're like the calm that precedes a very big storm. It makes me think of walking into the woods and suddenly noticing that all of the animals have stopped moving or making noise. It's this eerie level of calm that precedes them, where you think, I don't know what that is, but I don't want to mess with it. Antares star beings basically don't get involved unless there's a violation of free will. So the Antares Aldebaran star beings kind of team up or work together as protectors of free will. These starseeds may feel protective of others even in situations that aren't directly related to them. If this resonates with you, then stick around to learn more. Let me start by saying this isn't just another starseed video, not for me anyway. I really want to honor this connection, my connection to the Antares star lineage, and you by being real, meaning I didn't spend 30 days in some sacred cave fasting and meditating for 12 hours a day in order to bring this information through. Because if I have to sit completely still for hours while maintaining perfect posture and focus, I'm probably not doing it. I can either sit still or maintain total focus for about half an hour, but not both at the same time. At least not in this incarnation. Hey, I'm Kelly, and welcome to this video where I'll be sharing with you information that has come through multiple client readings where the client either had conjunct or opposite alignments to Antares or Aldebaran fixed stars in their natal charts, aka the Stargate portal as it's often referred to. I emphasize the conjunct and opposite alignments here where they indicate a direct incarnation within the practice of galactic astrology. This interpretation differs from other aspects such as trines, squares, and sextiles when no other alignment such as the conjunct or opposition is present, meaning if you have a conjunction or opposition, those take priority in the interpretation. I also want to point out that this information is only part of the Antares story. These are the glimpses that have been shown to me through these readings, relevant to this piece of the puzzle. Many other people, including yourself, will have different pieces of this story if you resonate with lifetimes in the Antares star system. It's kind of like if you travel to a different country right now, you would only experience that culture and landscape in the context of today. You would only see part of the culture, the people, the current social structure, family lifestyle, political and environmental achievements and challenges. You get the idea. Whereas if you visited 2,000 years ago or 200,000 years ago, that area would likely be unrecognizable. So I can only share with you the parts that have been shown to me, the details that have been conveyed to me through client readings and so on. And although this part of my direct cosmic lineage has been with me my entire life, I didn't know about the extent of my family's connection until just over a year ago when I was taking Julia's Quantum Soul Guidance course. I was honestly stunned to see this in my family history through my father's lineage. I had no idea. And it wasn't until I came across this portal in a client's chart that I started getting the information I'm about to share with you. So excited. I said all that to say this, though. If you feel like you're late to the party, you aren't. And if you feel like you're missing something because you don't see or feel or hear the presence of your star families, you aren't. They're around you. Galactic astrology is starting to open me up to new skills and awarenesses that I haven't really accessed before. Weehaw. So wherever you are in your journey right now, you are right on time. Please don't feel left out. Okay, you ready for the good stuff? Let's go. The Antarean incarnational cycle relevant to tactical training is a completely different experience than any military unit here on Earth. Number one, they are warriors, not just soldiers, in the truest sense, to me anyway, meaning combat is always seen as a last option. And number two, they train for several consecutive incarnations before ever learning or practicing the tactical stuff. The second point is the main focus of what will be covered in this video. So, for example, here on Earth, when someone goes through boot camp, like I did decades ago, once they graduate boot camp, once they successfully complete their training, they're eligible to be shipped off to a battle zone to go to war as we're used to seeing it here. This isn't the case with Antares. In the Antares system, you don't have just a single incarnation, one and done, and then go off to some hot zone. There is a training cycle that requires multiple consecutive incarnations before you even make it to studying the battle tactics portion. First incarnation, learning to control emotional triggers and responses. The star beings from Antares are identified as mantis beings. So they are physically different from humans, which means their physiology is different than ours, and they experience, quote, emotions differently than we do. For example, our bodies produce cortisol and dopamine and adrenaline and some other chemicals when we are stressed or happy, and so on. I'm not sure what chemicals are produced in the mantis brain or body, so I can only offer analogies here. So, this entire first incarnation in this cycle is dedicated to learning to control and calibrate those emotional triggers. You are trained to identify what those triggers are, like, do I feel protective? Do I feel angry, scared, overwhelmed, excited, frustrated, hopeless, etc.? This also includes mental triggers or distractions. So, learning to focus or stay focused and or redirect attention is critical. Second consecutive incarnation, learning to control physiological responses. This next consecutive incarnation, and they do have to be consecutive, which I'll explain more in a minute, is dedicated to learning to control the physiological responses to those emotional triggers. After becoming aware that you have those emotional responses from the first incarnation, then you learn to control the physiological response, aka your body's natural reaction. So you learn to control things such as heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, visual focus, body movements, whatever these physical correlations to the human body would be as a Mantian being. One of the reasons they must reincarnate in order to move up to the next training level, instead of, say, completing this process as a series of training phases in one extended incarnation, is so that the soul can reset after a full incarnation of intense training and focus on one specific lesson. So this gives the soul time to absorb the experience and integrate it more fully before moving to the next incarnation. When they leave the body after a training incarnation, those lessons get stored on the hard drive, in a manner of speaking. These lessons must be integrated at the soul level for them to continue to the next training phase. Third consecutive incarnation, learning to expand your awareness beyond your body and out into the surrounding field. Once you've mastered the first two lessons, emotional and physiological responses, then this third consecutive incarnation is dedicated to learning to project your awareness outside of your body. This takes you beyond just feeling the impulses inside of you and makes the environment an extension of you. You learn to feel the environment all around you. For example, you begin to perceive the subtle changes in air pressure and temperature, notice any vibrations coming from the ground beneath you, and you can perceive subtle differences in those vibrations. Even the sense of smell increases, so you can pick up a shift in pheromones, for example. Your hearing increases, which allows you to perceive a difference in the background noise or even a difference in the cadence of someone's walk. You practice stillness so that you can hear the subtle difference in tone and pitch of the wind passing between you and a tree or another object that is, say, 3 feet away versus one that is 15 feet away. Think of an example where you are blindfolded and must stretch yourself to experience all the shades of difference in your environment through sound. It's almost like a form of echolocation, but you aren't projecting any sound to bounce off of these objects. It's more than echolocation. You become able to feel the life force in those trees, so you can tell when the line of energy gets disrupted and further train to identify what those disruptions are. This training cycle stretches one's abilities and also one's discipline. Fourth consecutive incarnation, learning to move as one, becoming the sum of all parts while maintaining individual agency. Once you reach a level of mastery over your ability to perceive the environment as an extension of yourself, then the next lesson is dedicated to training with your team and learning to perceive them at any given moment, also as an extension of you within that shared environment. You calibrate to their different energies and movements, and they calibrate to yours. This is kind of a group calibration training phase. It's a sequential expansion of awareness. As you each become entrained, it doesn't become a hive mind. That's a very important distinction here, but it is a shared vibration. This allows you to be more effective because you are now also connected to their connections and what's going on. It feels like some level of trained synchronicity or choreography, but it isn't. It's like part telepathy and part group muscle memory, if that makes sense. It makes me think of those movie scenarios where a battle scene is choreographed to perfection and everyone is moving in sync because it's all planned ahead of time and practiced. But this is not pre-planned, nor is it choreographed. It's a natural phenomenon and result of this type of entrained training, where you move as a single unit but not a hive mind. This is also why these incarnations must be consecutive. They keep emphasizing this for me. You can't just skip one and jump back into the class where you left off, kind of like I did in college. This type of incarnational training matrix creates a unified morphic field that is specific to each training cycle. Just like anywhere else, sometimes things happen between incarnations and a soul chooses to go somewhere else for a while, take a break, go support family, whatever the case may be. So they pop out of that incarnational training cycle. When this happens, the training morphic field can adjust to the loss, can't necessarily readjust for an addition. So the way they've shown it to me is once someone pops out of that training phase or that training cycle, as the group recalibrates, they move forward with that new entrained vibration. So it's less disruptive to keep going with the smaller numbers than it would be to add the soul back in. This protects the integrity of the group field that has been set in motion. Speaking from experience, I can tell you for certain that it makes a difference when you train together. And you can definitely tell when a group has not trained together. I have 5 years in the military and over 5 years in corrections. We've got stories. Some of them work out, some of them don't. So to illustrate the point about being able to tell the difference between teams that train together and just groups that don't train together, here's a quick story. This one time when I was working at the county jail, we were tasked with moving a couple of inmates from one tank to another. It's these young kids, and they were in there just bumping their gums and causing trouble and annoying the other people, right? Annoying the other inmates. So we decided to just move them out before something popped off. Well, the sum total of our plan was to go in there, have them pack up, and leave. And it was me and two male officers, my coworkers, fellow officers. We go in, we tell them to pack up. So as they're packing up, they start running their mouths, and I'm in the background trying to keep the other inmates just calm and just, chatting. They're all staying calm, staying chill. And one of the kids said something that was intended to, get things going, and it worked. The inmates start coming out of their shirt and people stand up and we're like, oh no, oh no. And so my two coworkers try to take these young kids and I'm trying to keep everyone else calm. So I start moving back and forth between where the two kids run in their mouth. My guy's in the back. And I was like, y'all just keep it cool, just keep it cool, just let them run their mouth. So the fellow officers I was working with were doing the best that they could in that moment to get control of the two kids. It just didn't go well. The guys kept running their mouths. There was just movement and madness and chaos. And at some point, one of the kids tells the guy, this inmate that was cooperating with me and keeping it chill, this kid said something to him about, don't let that little girl stand in your way. And I was like, little girl? I came this close to moving out of the way and be like, he's all yours. But I couldn't do that. It still took us another 5 minutes to get the whole situation under control. And by we, I mean the two guys I worked with. They were trying to control one guy and another guy got loose, and then they tried to get this guy and this guy got loose. And so It was an unregistered hot mess. And at some point, I moved to get in front of these two guys that had got it's just people everywhere. You could tell the lack of coordination, you could tell the lack of training. But what was interesting, though, what I realized in reviewing that situation is I had actually trained more with my inmates than I did with my coworkers. I spent 12 hours a day with my inmates. I spent months working with them, building rapport, understanding them, earning trust and respect. And it really showed in that situation where the training was, because I was able to be more effective in dealing with the inmates that I had built that rapport with than the two guys I worked with. I don't know if that's a great example or not. The whole point was it was a hot mess. It's just an unregistered hot mess. Sometimes it just goes down that way. But it definitely makes a difference of when you train together versus when you don't. Okay, y'all, bear with me on this last one. This piece is easier to understand and hear than it is to explain with words, but I'm going to do my best, okay? Fifth consecutive incarnation, accessing multiple timelines. This incarnation is about learning to slow the mind and focus your awareness to the extent that you can pull up and access multiple outcomes in any situation so that you can choose the highest outcome with the least amount of harm. This is the ultimate goal for Antarians. So this fifth consecutive incarnation is a bit tricky to explain. When it first came through, I explained it as learning to slow the mind down so it can perceive multiple timelines at once. I see it as slowing your awareness down to tap into multiple outcomes, but it's not about stopping time. It's about controlling your awareness relevant to the timelines. What the Antarians are looking for in these timelines and possible outcomes is the one that has the most effective or productive result with the least amount of harm. So basically, more impact and less contact. It could be the case that they actually speed up their awareness in order to perceive these multiple timelines, making it seem like everything around them slows down, which makes me think of a scene from The Matrix, but it's not quite like that. So, as you can tell, I'm still working on this piece, y'all. The purpose of consecutive incarnational training cycles is to maintain the integrity of each training matrix. You can't skip an incarnation and pick up where you left off. Each unit must adjust to any removal of a teammate and continue their training accordingly. The reason this training incarnation cycle is so important is that with the Antarians, their first, second, and third goal is always no harm. Remember, they are the protectors of free will. These beings are not aggressive, hostile, or antagonistic, so they train at this highest level of discipline in order to avoid violence or prevent causing harm to another being. It really is their goal. That said, they also train for those times when they may be met with full resistance or opposition. And if a negotiation can't be made, where Antares is only left with the option to fight, then it's your ass. I may do a follow-up video on this aspect of the Antares Aldebaran star beings at some point, whenever they are called to go do what you would consider like a mission, right? For now, let's just stay with the training cycle. Okay, your turn. Do any of these incarnational phases sound familiar? Do they feel familiar? Did any of this resonate with you? Let me know. I really want to hear this. Or did you have any other experience in the Antares system? I know it's more than just the military training cycles. That's just what has shown up for me. But I'm curious to know the other aspects of Antares that people experience in their own regressions or their own soul memories. I really would love to hear your experiences below. And if you've made it this far, do me a favor and hit that like button on your way out. Thanks. Enjoy the journey, and I'll see you in the next one. And although this part of my, until last year until that area would fairly, that area would fairly, you would only see many, if you try, because if I have to sit, because if I have to sit, hey, I'm Kelly. Hey, I'm Kelly, and welcome to this video. Hey, I'm Kelly. Through client readings. Whereas if you have, whereas if you have, whereas if you have Fair enough? Fair enough? Okay, you ready for the good stuff? Let's go.